Good evening, my friends. Well, gee whiz. What is it, the 22nd of December, 2017? This is Carpo's channel, my humble little YouTube channel in the corner of YouTube land. I said that because right when I sat down, it popped into my mind. I watched this video this morning from this Casey Neistat, or whatever the hell his name is. He's like this YouTuber that just talks about random shit and, like, you know, vlogs, and he became famous. But anyway, the video, I wasn't even going to click on it, but it was like a Samsung sponsored ad on YouTube. And he kind of like works for, you know, whatever. He's sponsored by whatever corporations now. But CNN and all this other shit, I think. But the dude's not my thing, so I'm not interested in his vlogs. He talks about just stupid shit to me. So but I clicked on it, and it was where they turned this mall into like a winter wonderland for kids who needed, you know, who didn't have much to look forward to at Christmas because they lived in the ghetto, basically. And it actually brought me to tears. It was pretty good. He didn't, but you know, the whole scene, the whole event brought me to tears. I was like, you know, it's great to see this time of year when people love to help each other, even if it's, whether it's for selfish reasons or marketing or not. You know, the fact that people just do nice things. And I guess it's, if you are marketing, then it's really hard to convince people that you're not. It's part of the reason why I never want to market or sponsor my company or say anything about it, because I'm like, I don't want to be that guy who's like, yeah, I'm just making videos for, you know, my business. And so there's a fine line between that. But there are a lot of companies out there doing altruistic and philanthropic work, if you will. And so for me, I'm just, you know, I never want to be that guy who's making vlogs professionally and sponsored and funded by a company. I have a desire to, I'd love to do this for a living, and I'd love to be able to get paid to just talk about my thoughts all the time, but I refuse to cater to some specific demographic or talk about a subject because I'm asked to. Sometimes it's entertaining to do so, but that wouldn't allow me to sit here and, like, take bong hits and stuff, you know. So I have a video here to make that I wanted to talk about. You know, how there's a few things, of course, that I wanted to mention, but I'm smoking some Blue Dream, and it's nice because it's the first time I've had decent weed. My wife got some at the pot store up the street, I guess, and we've been smoking homegrown for so long that, you know, it's nice to have something different. I haven't tried it yet, but I realize that smoking pot is tacky to some people, and some folks think that, you know, if you don't smoke pot, it might be a strange thing, but to me it's no different than having a beer. And of course I would be doing that in my own home while I'm making a video talking about life. And here it's legal, so, you know, we can buy it at the store. So anyhow, well, at the pot store. So what I wanted to talk about, before I get off track talking about weed here, is a lot of different things. I have a lot on my mind quite often, and that's why my vlog is really a journal of my thoughts and my feelings about life in general. I have a very balanced view of what I consider to be thoughtful living. And thoughtful living is, it means that you're always aware of your ups and downs. You use your mental alchemy, if you will, to overcome obstacles and to see things as the most positive you can. And no matter how bad things get, you learn to cope. And I think some people become a little bit numb to pain, physical and mental, especially if you're facing a lot. For example, lately I've been dealing with a lot of issues, personal, not for myself, but those close to me, and other worldly issues that could bog me down in the past, or could have bogged me down. But I've learned to overcome those. I found a way to go and move myself past society's bullshit and to look at things in the way that I want to look at them, without becoming the outcast guy who's just delusional, if that makes sense. To not be the guy who says, well, screw everybody else, I know what's best, but rather incorporating what I know into the way the world works and integrating my thoughts into the way the world functions in order to live the most simple and enjoyable life. And when you integrate yourself into the world, that's what they call integrity. Integrity, by definition, is being able to integrate. It's not some sort of a top hat and a cigar. It's or values in one person's mind. It's really being able to integrate within your society. And to me, that kind of means being a chameleon, being able to hang out with gangsters or rich people or punks or hippies and enjoy the aspects of every culture, you know, that make them what they are. But the little things don't get to me, you know. There's a lot of this bullshit going around about microaggressions, and there's a lot of people with thin skin out there who, I mean, for me, I understand the whole bully thing and people insulting others and how people feel about it. My thought is, if a bully's fucking with you, you know, either kick their ass or say fuck you back to them. You know, it's funny because this came to mind when this video came up earlier that I watched. It was this guy David Whitehead, and he calls himself Truth Warrior. And I've never watched his videos. Like, I don't know how I subscribed to him, but I never watched them because I thought that sounds arrogant to call yourself a truth warrior. And maybe that was my shortcoming, to not give him the chance. You know, I'd listened to a couple of his videos, but this one was particularly good, and it was about microaggressions and victimization and victims, and how many people are out there are basically whiny little bitches, you know, complaining about the smallest problems, and instead of dealing with them themselves, it's fine. If you have a gripe, deal with it, fine. But do it in a way where you're dealing with it yourself. You don't call the cops to deal with your problems. It's always been one of the things to me that's been something that separates me from a lot of other people. Like, people have a problem and they say, well, I'm going to call the cops on the neighbors or on this and that. I'm like, fuck you. You know, what kind of a person are you? Call the cops on them for something because you can't handle it yourself? I mean, the cops are not the middlemen between us and our neighbors. If you have a problem with your neighbor, go over and talk to your fucking neighbor. And it's the same thing with somebody who's a drug dealer or anything else, you know. If you have a problem, calling the cops on people. But it's the worst when people, you know, can't solve their own problems. So they use not just police, but government. That's the thing. It's not just cops. It's laws and rules and regulations and frivolous lawsuits about the stupidest things that get people in these situations where they're suing somebody over something so frivolous that it's a waste of the taxpayers' money. It's a waste of all of our money. I mean, you know, what's going on right now in the world is preposterous. But what's going on in this country with, you know, our tax money, you know, well over half of it going to military coups and overseas embassies in all these countries, it's absurd. I can't even go into it. And that's why I never talk about the U.S. government or any other government for that matter, because it's so fucking absurd. The whole picture of the world, as far as governments and people are concerned, is just absolutely crazy. I mean, but I'm fascinated with it. I'm fascinated with history. I watched a couple shows this morning about, like, one of them was Rick Steves. He does like an OPB show, I think. It was Rick Steves Europe, but he was doing this one about Jerusalem, and then I watched one about Iran this morning, but just kind of getting a renewed idea of what's going on over in Palestine and Jerusalem, and really looking at the place as what, you know, instead of this U.S. bullshit version of what we think is going on in the world. I'm not that shallow person. I know that it's much more complicated. And so my little problems don't seem that significant to me because I know how crazy things are in the rest of the world. I live in the Pacific Northwest. You know, people know us as a bunch of hipsters. But really it's more complex than that. You know, I would rather almost live in an area where their communities are so tight, you know, over in the Middle East, and there's a lot of chaos and there's a lot of tension. But I would rather live in somewhere, say, like, you know, even some of the more intense European areas where there's not a lot of violence. It's not about escaping America. It's just the idea that I don't think that it's perfect here. We don't connect. Americans don't connect as much as other nations do, and that's what holds us back. We talk about being Americans, but nobody asks each other, what is America to you? Because America is an individual thing. Some nationalities, it has to do with the nation itself. For Americans, it's about whatever they stand for. And since there are regions all over America, the Northwest, Eastern Seaboard, you know, Central America, or Southern America, down the South, Georgia, you know, Louisiana, and then down in Texas, their own country as far as they're concerned. California might as well be their own country, and we all have different values and what we find important. And even within that, there's Cascadia, the little area where I live, where, you know, it's Washington, Oregon, and part of California, that these little sections that they wanted to separate from the rest of the Northwest or the rest of the U.S. as their own country, annexed or whatnot. It doesn't matter, all that's frivolous, you know, trivial shit, but it just fascinates me how humans separate ourselves from one another, because we can't cope with finding a group connection with one another where, and in America, we don't have any real culture. Now, down in the South, even though a lot of the people say out here might diss those in the South, they actually do have some culture down there. And so do some other areas, but that's changing with integration. Everything is becoming more homogenized. And that scares a lot of people. That's why white Americans are rallying behind this whole bullshit, you know, white pride crap. I mean, to me, that whole thing is just, you know, yeah, I'm a white guy, I live in America, but no, I don't believe in, you know, Home Depot tiki torches marching through the streets as some sort of a, you know, significance to the fact that you have white skin or that your ancestors were white. You know, yeah, I understand nature operates and species stay within their own, yada, yada, yada. Humans are humans, okay, I'm not even going to go into that whole thing, but to me it just shows the desperation that this country has got to, where people are willing to go out and stand in the streets with torches in their polo shirts talking about white pride and not really understanding the deeper implications of how that comes across, or not caring. And in a world where we need to care about one another, you know, I have thick skin and I don't give a shit what a person says about me personally. And that, I guess what I'm saying is maybe that seems like because I'm an American and I'm free, but it's more complex than that. I actually have a deep reverence for the conflicts in the world, and for my own country, and my own countrymen, even people that I don't agree with. I have a respect for everyone and their opinion, because I know that mine isn't better than anyone else's. You know, humans do our best, but we have to realize that we're following a pattern, a programmed pattern of aggression that we've carried with us through the ages. And I could blame religion, like I used to when I was, you know, younger. I've had many epiphanies about religion, and then the last, in fact today, I had an epiphany while I was watching that thing about Jerusalem, and it was about how, you know, I understand that people need religion to cope with life, but it was more than that. It was almost like a new reverence for Orthodox Jews, or, you know, very extreme Muslims, or extreme Christians, the people carrying the cross up the stairs. Anyone who has a strong desire and devotion towards their belief system, there may be a slight bit of envy among those who call themselves strong atheists, that there may be a small bit of envy towards the class of people who can believe things, believe extreme religious ideals, without having any evidence whatsoever. Basically, the idea that a person can have faith and truly believe it. It seems outlandish to some people, but there's maybe a little bit of envy involved, and I say that because I perhaps have noticed my own envy over the years of people who really can have a faith and believe 100% in a God that they can't see or prove or understand. That's not my path. I'm a rationalist, but I do believe, so just to clear the air, I do believe in a higher intelligence. I don't believe in a God, though. I don't believe in a man with a beard or a heaven or a hell. But that's for each person to decide on their own. You know, I've had this conversation recently with someone close to me, and I tried to explain, somebody who was trying to cope with that whole idea of death and where we go and where we come from, and saying it doesn't matter. You know, like we are here now, and like some philosopher said, like, do you remember where you were before you were born? You know, of course not. So why worry about where you'll be when you're gone? Where do you go when you sleep? Where do you go when you're knocked out and under anesthesia? Nobody knows. You know, nobody wants to think about that stuff. And it doesn't matter. Enjoy the moment you have. That is what living in the now is. It's not about forgetting the past or the future. It's about embracing both of them. Saying, wow, I've had some fun, and fucking hell, we're going to have some more fun. It's going to be a crazy life. We're going to have some good times, but we're going to have some hard times. You know? And that's maybe another thing I should mention. Perhaps I should see how much camera time I have left. Plenty, but, you know, I don't want to go too far out. The negative side, you know, the hard side, the difficult side. I think the reason why I can cope with so much shit in my life is because I've dealt with so much shit in my life. And if you don't have problems and you don't face, oh God, that weed is so good. It's Blue Dream. I love that strain. God, it tastes delicious. Sorry. If you don't have conflict in your life, you're not going to enjoy reprisal or relief from that conflict. The pendulum swings both ways. The worse the lows are, sometimes the better the highs are. That's very subjective, and I know each person has to deal with that in their own way. I can't say this is the way that life is, because I'm just a fucking human. I don't know shit. I'm just a guy sitting here in my back room, kicking back, making a few minutes, telling the family, hey, leave me alone. I'm going to make a video because I want to talk to random people on the internet through a camera about life. Ditching my family in the process and thinking, you know, why am I doing this? And realizing it's important to me because of the fact that, you know, and it kind of comes full circle, because what I was just, you know, talk about was the fact that the family, kids, they keep me very busy. They keep me, you know, completely, you know, the stress of being a parent, to be a good parent, it's difficult. And we have 3 kids and animals and all kinds of problems with the house right now. I just found out that the drain pipe from the kitchen was actually had a dime-sized hole in it, and it was pouring out every time we did the dishes or ran the sink in the kitchen, filling up under the cabinet and then draining into the house. And then that's on top of the fact the bathtub was, you know, the drain's having problems. Won't even go into it. Whole shitload of house problems on top of car problems, on top of life problems. I have a bunch of teeth I need to get fixed, and I don't have the money to do any of it. And I think, how am I going to raise a bunch of money? And here I am at the same time saying, yeah, money doesn't matter. You know, I don't really care about money. You know, you know, the irony is not lost. It's the fact that we, you know, pretend. We do our best to cope is what I'm getting at. I have a lot of stress in my life, so therefore smaller things like the news. I don't watch the media. I don't have cable. I don't watch the news ever. Ever. I look at the headlines on Associated Press, and if there's nothing important, if it's the same shit as the day before, I just don't even bother. I don't have the time for it. I don't have Facebook. I had it for a while for my business, but I just deactivated my account a few days ago because I just couldn't. I know the dopamine rush you get from going in there and checking your stuff, and you know, it's just not worth it. You know, I know most people have Facebook, and that it helped me with my business to, like, you know, inform customers of what was going on, new strains of kratom or other herbs and different, you know, interesting things that I wanted to share, but it's not worth it. You know, I just, it's an addiction like anything else, and being human is weird. All of our experiences together, you and I, we're all here together, and a lot of you have been watching my channel for a long time, and I feel like your family. I've had a lot of you email me personally, you know, want to connect on a deep level, and try to talk back and forth, and I totally appreciate and read to the, you know, every detail of every email I get, every message I get as well. I just don't always have the time to respond, and I know that you understand that, because you know I have a family and a life too beyond the internet, but it's just good to be able to share, and good to be able to bounce ideas off of people. And I know a lot of you have similar situations where you have kids and you have to deal with life too. A lot of people who are single and have a lot of money, can you imagine, you know, trying to convince a person like that how hard life really can be? You know, when you actually have to provide. There's a huge difference between having to provide for yourself and then having to provide for yourself and maybe, you know, a loved one, and then having to provide for yourself and a loved one and all your kids. And of course it's your choice to have children, and it's your choice to have a loved one, but it's worth it in the end, because we want love, we want companionship. So there's a fine balance between companionship and codependency, and there's a fine balance between supporting others and supporting ourselves, and emotional support, physical support, and really the whole point of this is that we're all coping the best we can. We put tunnel vision into whatever we want to see at the moment. And, God, it's a crazy ride, isn't it? You know, I know most of you get it. You know what I'm talking about. It's just a crazy ride. I should say all of you get it. I mean, I know that the younger ones out there, you know, if you're in your 20s or younger than your 20s, you know, you're still going to go through some big changes, and that's okay. Be ready to cope with that. You know, you're going to realize you're not what you thought you were. All the bullshit you thought you knew was not true. No matter how humble you may be. I mean, it happened. I thought I was pretty humble, but I missed a lot. Like when people tell you life is going to be harder, you know, you're going to see how fast it goes. You hear it and you're like, yeah, well, you know, it's true. Embrace it, you know. Take what you can get while you're there, but never harm anybody else. And make sure nobody else has to suffer because of your fucking ignorance, because there's so many dumbasses out there who make it miserable for everyone else. And I don't know if there's any way really out of it. Me sitting here talking to a camera sure as hell isn't going to change the way that the world operates, you know. But this is my little corner. At the moment, this is how I'm trying to make a difference, by inspiring you. Maybe one of you has more energy than I do and can actually do something in the world. That's great. But it's not about that. It's about individuals finding their own potential to lead the best lives they can. What's more important than you changing the world is you spending the time to teach your child something, or, you know, to understand where they're coming from, or to maybe to have a little more patience with someone at work, or your wife or husband, to realize when we're placing blame on others that we should be placing on ourselves, and to stop being so damn arrogant, but also stop being we've got to give up on this whole microaggression victimization culture. It's got to go away. We are not victims, and the people out there who are making us seem weak, we will pay the price for being a weak society. It happens. And it's just like being an overly strong or violent society. And what's happened is the United States, for example, is polarized into an extremely aggressive side and an extremely passive weak side. And between that, you know, this is how things fluctuate. What we need to do is really come back closer to the middle, not completely, because we always need a variety of opinions, but you and I, as people, find our place, do the best we can, you know? So, that's my video for the night. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't really give a fuck if you didn't. Pardon my language, if there's young ones in the room. If you're an adult, pardon my language, I don't give a shit. Don't be so weak. It's not a microaggression. Yeah, that's the thing with YouTube. I guess I take advantage of that lately because so many people have talked about how they're being censored on YouTube. And a lot of channels have become really weak. Spending time talking about how, oh, you know, we can't get advertisement, you know, revenue anymore because we can't talk about certain subjects. And it's like, well, you know, if I wanted to make a channel, I've been on YouTube for 7 years, if I wanted to make a channel and talk about, you know, porn, if I wanted to make a channel and talk about the Illuminati or the flat earth or some sort of a UFO or conspiracy news or an Alex Jones-like channel, sure, I would probably have a lot more subscribers by now. You know, but I don't want that. I want people that are real. And all of you out there are real. You're real people who actually comment and have something cool to say. And to build that up to this point, to me, I mean, I don't take that for granted. I just want you all to know that. That if you've even watched this video this long, you know, it's amazing to know that, you know, people actually give a shit. Like Aron Goch, or Goch, I'm not sure how to pronounce it sometimes. He's from South Africa, and he has a channel. So check him out sometime on Goch, Aron Goch. And he has a channel on YouTube where he talks about some stuff. But I just want to say, Aaron, if you're out there, you know, it's guys like you know, the comments that you have now and again. I know that people watch videos and not everybody comments, and I'm the same way. I'll watch his videos and sometimes I'll be listening to it on the, you know, while I'm doing something, working around the house, and not have a chance to comment. But just to know that we're all here as a community and we care. Working together. Not everybody has the same opinion, and that's okay. And it's not about agreeing with one another. It's about something that just opens our ears and says, wow, that's true. That's what I don't know, that's puts a new perspective on what I've been thinking. And then you kind of, you know, incorporate that into your life and work together to try to better live. I won't say to better understand this world, because at one time in my life I wanted to better understand the world. Right now I don't care. I don't want to know where we come from or where we're going. I just want to live the best life possible while I'm here. So, peace to everybody, and I hope you have a good night and a good holiday, and I'll be talking to y'all soon. As always, I'll always have something to say.